The AEW World Championship, a topic I've been holding back on discussing for a hot minute now. Not because I don't have thoughts on our current world champion, trust me, I do, but I felt like a video on that topic specifically would have just turned into a rant, and I don't want to do that for a full video. Of course, we will have to discuss him here today, and I will give that rant just a tad more condensed version of it. But more so, this video is going to be about what I think the future of the AEW World Championship should look like. We'll go a little deeper than just asking AEW to pivot and moving on. I am gonna get into what I think the All In Texas main event should be and how we will get there. Last year, as many of you know, I gave my most contested take ever on this very topic, and I can see a world where this time is no different. However, we'll get to that when we get to it. First, we have to reluctantly start with the AEW World Champion, Jon Moxley, or as some call him now, John Ambrose, John Paquette, Dean Ambrose. Whatever you're rocking with, it's cool. His title reign has been dog shit. I mean, genuinely, this is the least convincing a wrestler has ever felt to me, which is wild because Moxley used to be the complete opposite. And for a time, at the very beginning of this run, he was still that. The Bryan Danielson plastic bag angle was fantastic. It would have been remembered as one of the greatest angles AEW had ever done. But it gets lost in all of this because how could you possibly think of anything other than just how unfortunate this has all been? Mox himself has turned to speaking in riddles. His work in the ring makes me feel nothing. Same thing goes for his group, the Death Riders, who are a chore to sit through whenever they're working together. The angles they shoot for them are pointless, they're soulless, and they do no good for anyone. They insist on trying to make this Wheeler Yuta story work. They insist on trying to make him the most imposing guy in the world. And all love and respect to Wheeler Yuta. His figure is behind me right now. Let's be serious. They had the Death Riders beat down every babyface they went against, always standing tall week after week after week up until very recently, forcing crowds to never get behind a babyface challenging for the world title, making the TV so much worse. They tried to make them beating down the Rock and Roll Express a major deal for weeks on end. If that doesn't tell you what's going on here, I don't know what will. I mean, this is all such a big mess, and it's hard not to just sit here and list off all the issues I have with this group and with Mox for hours on end. But what I can say though is that this has undoubtedly caused the most uproar I've ever seen from the AEW audience. Virtually nobody wants this to continue. You see it online all the time. You're now hearing it in the arenas more so than ever before. An entire pay-per-view was taken out of all-time show conversations simply because of a Death Riders main event that nobody cared about. We've known for a long time, but there is truly no salvaging this. There is truly no saving it. The frustration translating to the live crowds has to mark the end. AEW cannot afford for this to go to All In. They can't afford to stick to the plan they so obviously had in mind. Not only because of what I've outlined already when it comes to Mox and his group, but also because Darby Allin shouldn't be world champion. I'd go so far to say, if it were up to me, I'd move him to the back of the line. I think he's a fantastic wrestler, and there's no debate that he's a major part of what makes AEW AEW, and there was a time I was bought in on this idea. However, he decided to leave the main event scene in limbo to climb Mount Everest. He decided to go do daredevil shit. He may not even survive. That is the truth over being the guy. All love and respect to him for attempting to achieve a lifelong goal. But that's not what company leaders do, especially when they're so obviously going to be one sooner rather than later, especially when attempting said goal puts your life at risk. It may sound old school, it may sound shitty to say even, but it's what I truly believe. And just going off of what I see online, I sense others are starting to think the same thing. It also should be mentioned as well that some of the blame lies on Tony Khan for even allowing his world title to be in this situation. And part of the blame lies on him for even allowing his contracted talent to do that climb, especially right now. But that doesn't exactly take away from what I've already said. And with that said, that of course opens up what could be potentially done with this storyline. And that's where things get fun. Not only because who doesn't love fantasy booking, but also because AEW has been setting up so many people to potentially pivot to here soon. Above all of them though is Swerve Strickland, the man who made himself undeniable last year. You all have heard me talk about it time and time again. I thought he was the wrestler of the year last year for how central he made himself to AEW. How he took his opportunity to be the guy and truly became the guy. That means something to me, and so does him being the prime pivot option at this very moment, as he is set to face Jon Moxley for the AEW World Championship in question at AEW Dynasty, 1 year removed from when he first won that title at Dynasty against Samoa Joe. It's almost poetic that this has happened the way it has, and you have to commend Swerve for staying at this level for this entire year. At so many points, he could have lost that crowd support so many wrestlers have after losing their championships. But not Swerve. He's still as beloved a character in this promotion amongst its fan base as ever before. And yes, booking does play a role in that, but his performances are what make it possible. Which is why I'm fully on board with him winning the AEW World Championship at Dynasty. But I don't want it to be mistaken that that's not only due to the fact that I'm ready to see this Jon Moxley reign of terror end. It's also largely because I think it makes AEW All In so much more interesting. Because in this case, when one of the 3 highest tier guys in AEW have that title, you have to look towards the other 2. Of course, I'm referring to Will Ospreay and Hangman Adam Page. Now, before I dive into each possibility, I want to make one thing very clear. If Swerve is the champ, one of these 2 is the only option for Texas. They are above everyone else on this roster in terms of what AEW is. You have to main event your biggest show of the year with one of them. Which one of them though? Well, let's talk about Will Ospreay first. This is a guy who's done the most consistently great work in the company since his arrival. Having fantastic matches, some of the best in promotion history, cutting promos that nobody thought would be as good as they are, and putting together some of the most engaging feuds in the company over the last year or so, including his recent one with Kyle Fletcher. I mean, we've done this Ospreay praise segment time and time again, but I don't mind doing it once again. He deserves it for all the great things he's done, and truthfully, there's no doubt, there shouldn't be any doubt that Will deserves to hold that world championship. On the other hand though is a guy you all know I think deserves to hold that belt in Hangman Adam Page, who, despite the booking letting him down at times, despite them not getting everything that they should have out of this heel character, still feels like the main character. A main character, I should add, seems to be on the road to redemption if this remarkable MJF feud is any indication. A newly returning babyface cowboy seems like something you'd want to cement at your biggest show of the year, given that once again he is the heart, he is the soul of AEW. That hasn't changed. So with both of their cases laid out on the table, I'm left to make a decision. And I'm not very happy about it. Both guys have such strong, valid cases for being the one to main event All In against Swerve Strickland this year, which is a stark contrast to last year, where I felt there was only one option I would be okay with. Now, if AEW went with either of these guys, I wouldn't be mad. I would completely understand and fully get behind it. The only thing that would make me mad in this scenario is if Swerve doesn't beat Mox for that title. In this scenario, he does for sure though. And getting back to where we were, Hangman and Ospreay have both earned this slot. They deserve it, but only one can have it, which lays the perfect groundwork for a truly impactful Owen Hart Cup Foundation finals between them both, where I see with a world title shot at All In on the line with a chance to headline AEW's biggest show every year, I have Hangman Adam Page getting the victory. If you've been watching the channel for a while, you may claim bias here, and guess what? It is. I'm putting together how I want to see this play out, and for me, a newly returned babyface cowboy walking in to All In Texas with Ghost Town Triumph blaring across the arena for the first time since July 3rd, 2024. Just sounds too special. However, before I get too deep into it, I also want to mention who I'd have beating him for that title. Because guess what? I have Will Ospreay being the guy to get it done at World's End. I say there because I want to give Hangman some time with a belt, of course. I think he deserves that. But also because I want the story to be Ospreay is desperate to win this title before the year comes to a close. I feel that's plenty compelling if he's not going to be the pick for All In this year. And I should note, that feels satisfying as a Will Ospreay fan. Some of you may forget that, but I've had this Twitter banner for a very long time now, which also you should follow my Twitter. But I'm a fan of both of these guys. I don't need allegations that I hate Will Ospreay like the ones I got for Bryan Danielson. Let's avoid that now. But back on to Hangman for All In. This scenario sets up Hangman versus Swerve, number 5, continuing arguably AEW's greatest ever feud. But the dynamics at play here do completely shift with Hangman as the babyface, completely absolving me of all my worries that this, by any chance, might not feel the freshest. And on top of that, these guys just seem to find a way to make their stuff hit that next level. So with that said, let's lay all of these plans out on the table. Jon Moxley loses the AEW World Championship to Swerve Strickland at AEW Dynasty, and it finally exits that goddamn briefcase. The Death Riders then go away from TV, while Swerve holds that title until All In. All the while, Ospreay and Hangman meet in the Owen Cup Finals, vying for a shot at Swerve and that title at All In, with Hangman getting the victory, giving us Swerve Strickland versus Hangman Adam Page number 5 in the main event. Dynamics changed, hatred maybe not so much. Then, after what I expect to be another great match in their historic rivalry, Hangman Page wins and becomes the new AEW World Champion for the second time in his career. Months later at World's End, a rematch of the Owen Cup Finals takes place, with Will Ospreay challenging Hangman Adam Page for the world title and coming out on top, becoming the champion, cementing himself as the guy to lead AEW into 2026. Now, I gotta say, when I present it like that, when I give the full picture, I start to get some chills up my arms. But of course, this is all my opinion. It's all my fantasy booking. Of course, I'm gonna like it. That's why I want to hear from all of you. What are your thoughts on my proposed scenario? Do you have a different one? Do you simply want to call me Hangman Adam Page Dick Rider? I don't know. Whatever you want to do, just make sure to drop it in the comments below. While you're there, don't forget to like this video as well. It does me a whole lot of good. And of course, what does me the most good, subscribe to the channel for new videos just like these, where we're always talking Graps. Thank you all so much for watching. It's been Novi. Much love to each and every one of you. Stay safe, be well, and I'll see you at All In, hopefully with Hangman and Swerve as the main event. Peace, y'all.